Some relief at last. Most earning less than $70,000 a year will get $350 over 3 months from August to help with the cost of living crisis. It represents quite a turnaround for the government. Just 2 months ago on this show, Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern wouldn't acknowledge we were in a cost of living crisis. AM's been campaigning for months for action. Take a look. Do we have a cost of living crisis?
We are experiencing high inflation at the moment.
My question's to the Prime Minister.
My question is to the Prime Minister.
To the Minister of Finance.
Does she stand by her response when asked if New Zealand has a cost of living crisis?
Is it a crisis?
I wouldn't describe it that way.
What does she say to the mother of 5, Christine Nation, who told the AM show, quote,
I've just spent a lot of money on an amazing degree that I cannot go and use because it's cheaper for me to be at home.
We have always been very careful to ensure that we've done things like increase the minimum family tax credit. The point I'm making, Mr. Speaker, is the member opposite may only have started talking about the importance of living and increasing wages against the cost of living now. We've been talking about it since 2017.
So movement on petrol, movement on public transport, and now this $350 payment. Joining us this morning, Finance Minister Grant Robertson. Minister Morena, good morning.
Ata Marie.
Can we start with this payment? So it's about $814 million, which is a significant sum. Is it really needed? Is it really that essential for people?
Well, we believe so. Obviously we've significantly lifted the incomes of those on the lowest incomes in New Zealand through our package on the 1st of April and the 1st of May winter energy payment. And we thought that there was a wider group of New Zealanders who did need temporary support. I'm never going to pretend that it's going to meet all the costs that are out there, but clearly with the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the extension of the supply chain constraints from COVID-19, we are seeing inflation higher than was originally predicted late last year. And we think this is an important contribution we can make for a wider group of New Zealanders to have some cost of living support.
If it's so essential, why do people have to wait 10 weeks to get it?
Yeah, well, right now, or 9 o'clock this morning, Parliament will start up again and we'll pass the legislation that's required for the Inland Revenue Department to be able to deliver the payment. It is a big deal. Inland Revenue's never really done a payment like this before, so they've got to set up their systems to do it. In the meantime, we've got the 2-month extension of the 25 cent a litre cut to fuel excise duty and the RUC changes and the extension of the public transport changes. So we're continuing to support all New Zealanders through this period, and then from the 1st of August we end up with a more targeted level of support for those earning less than 70 grand.
Okay, so we have to spend some time getting this all together and organised before the payments can start. When did you decide that this policy, you'd go ahead with this policy? When did you decide it was going to happen?
Yeah, so from the beginning of the year, once we saw that Russian invasion of Ukraine, we moved as quickly as we could because oil prices were so going up so fast as a result of that to bring in that 25 cents a litre cut. And around that period of time, we thought about, well, what more can we do? We had the 1 May winter energy payment coming in that supports superannuitants and those on income support. And so we decided that we would look at a possibility of some further support to that wider group of people earning up to $70,000. It was all in the final budget package that was put to Cabinet in April, which is the normal time for that. But I've certainly learned through COVID, Ryan, that you have to be nimble and adaptable when it comes to putting budgets together.
Right, so you're saying that at the beginning of the year, you were thinking of this $350 payment?
No, what I said was at the beginning of the year, we recognised with the Russian invasion of Ukraine and the oil price spike that we needed to do things. We put in place the temporary 25 cents a litre cut and the half-price public transport, and at that point we began to think about what more we could do. Over a period of time, we looked at a range of different options and we settled on this $350 payment. Okay. $27 a week for that period of time, which is more than people would be getting per week through National's tax cuts, I might say. Yeah. But clearly, it's only a contribution, and we do understand that.
I think people might have a hard time believing this, stomaching this, Minister, when on the 7th of March on this program, the Prime Minister wouldn't concede we were in a cost of living crisis. When I asked her about removing excise on petrol, she said, if you remove excise, you lose your ability to maintain roads. When I brought up tax cuts, she said you would lose money being spent on health and education. There would have to be cuts there. there was a reluctance to, one, acknowledge there was a crisis and two, do anything about it. That was on the 7th of March.
Yeah, as I said, we moved as quickly as we could once, after that period of time to be able to say, how can we get, as those oil prices just kept spiking more and more, how could we get relief to people? $220 worth of support to somebody who's filling up a 60-litre tank every week. That's a significant amount of support, and now we're building on it. We have been supporting New Zealanders, Ryan, the whole time we've been in office. Those on the lowest incomes have seen an increase of about 46% since Labor's been in office in terms of what they get through income support. We've seen wages rising, but as inflation began spiking even more than people were expecting late last year, we have moved to respond. And I think there's a lot to be proud of in getting a balance in this budget between that short-term support and stuff we're not talking about in this interview, which is the big boosts to health spending, the support in education, the housing support. Got to get a balance. We've got some money for the here and now for cost pressures and big investments in those long-term challenges for New Zealand.
Given Kiwis have to wait 10 weeks for this, what you describe as essential payment, do you not concede you were just behind the 8 ball a little bit when it comes to the cost of living crisis? Inflation outstripped wages since September last year. In January, social services warned there was a rising cost of living crisis and it could cause civil disobedience. Even the ACT Party in December of last year was talking about a cost of living crisis, rent, food, petrol not keeping pace with wages.
So our 1st of April package included a change to the family tax credit that we began talking about just around that period at the end of last year. And then we brought in that fuel excise duty cut, the RUC cuts, the half-price public transport.
But only after sustained pressure.
No, just let me finish, Ryan. In the period between now and when this payment comes in on the 1st of August, we still have those things in place that are still providing significant benefits to people. There is cost of living pressure, there is a cost of living crisis for many New Zealanders. Absolutely accept that. We've supported the lowest income New Zealanders in a way that no previous government have. Now we're extending that support to a group of middle income earners because we do see that pressure there. That's balanced against all the other long-term investments we're making in the budget. And in terms of this payment, IR's never done this before. Takes them a bit of time to set up, but there is still support available to people in the meantime.
So when did you first give them the heads up that they'd need to be doing this?
We were discussing it in those months around March and leading into the finalisation of the package in April. So I don't know when.
Why is it not ready now? That's the
Because, Ryan, this is, as you noted yourself, $800 million worth of support here. This is a big deal. It does take time to get the systems right. We've got to pass the law that actually allows the Inland Revenue Commissioner to deliver the payment. That's happening under urgency right now. In the meantime, there is still across-the-board support through that 25 cents a litre cut, through the half-price public transport.
You say you were across the cost of living crisis from the get-go. Do you know how many press releases you issued with cost of living in them prior to our interview with the Prime Minister on the 7th of March?
I'm sure you're about to tell me, Ryan.
2 in the 12 months prior, 18 after it. I mean, this is the problem you've got, isn't it? I mean, I accept that it's fantastic. It's been acknowledged, and that money is going to flow in from August. But voters will be looking at you, and then they'll be looking at Chris Luxon, who seems to have been all across this one, and they'll be thinking, well, maybe he's got his finger on the pulse a bit more.
Well, no, because what Mr Luxon has been articulating is a tax cut that would give people like me far more money than the people that we're targeting in this package. $27 a week for 3 months for these people is more than they would get under Christopher Luxon's package, which would have a worse effect on inflation. And that's the point. We've come up with a really good balance here, a targeted piece of support that won't unnecessarily exacerbate the very problem we're trying to solve with inflation. Untargeted tax cuts that give people who earn more than 180 grand is going to make inflation worse. So I think we've got the balance right here. We have been supporting New Zealanders since we came into office with benefit increases, with increases in the minimum wage, with the winter energy payment, things that National have opposed. So I think our record on supporting New Zealanders with cost of living pressures stands up against promises of untargeted tax cuts that benefit wealthy people.
All right. Fair enough. Minister, thanks very much. Oh, just before you go, the Wall Street Journal, what's up with that? They're going to be in a bit of trouble.
I think they will be incredibly disappointing. You know, Ryan, because you've been here, the embargo on the Treasury budget documents is an incredibly important thing. It can move markets and do all of that. So hugely disappointing that the Wall Street Journal broke that embargo, and we'll see what the Treasury do in terms of consequences.
Yeah, absolutely.